15 minutes after I got home, my wife called to say she had a surprise waiting for me, but when she walked through the door, I knew something was horribly wrong. 20 minutes later, her boss was bleeding in my driveway. "Hey everyone, glad you could join me again. I've got something new to share, and honestly this one's still fresh in my mind." So, about 15 minutes ago, I walked through the front door after work. Usually when that happens, my wife, Emily, is already home. Most evenings, she beats me there and has something cooking, so the smell of dinner is the first thing that greets me. But today, the house was quiet. No sound of a pan sizzling, no music in the kitchen, just silence. Emily will sometimes stay late at her office, but it's not her usual pattern. I set my bag down, grabbed a cold beer from the fridge, and was about to call her to see if I should pick up food when my phone lit up. "Hi, sweetheart. Are you still at work?" I asked. "Yes, Mark," she said, sounding a little breathless. "But we're just wrapping up now. I've got a surprise for you. I think you're going to like it, or at least I hope you do." "I know I will." Something in her tone, a kind of unusual excitement, made me pause. "We need to talk when I get home, so be ready for me. I'll be there in about 20 minutes. Should I start dinner or grab something on my way back?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. "No, Mark. We won't have time for that tonight. Maybe later. Just remember, I love you and only you. I can't wait to see you." That last part made my chest warm. "I love you too, Emily. I'll be waiting for you with open arms." Exactly 20 minutes later, she stepped inside. The second I laid eyes on her, I felt something. Something was off. Her blouse was wrinkled, her stockings were gone, and her hair and makeup looked like she'd been through a windstorm. "Whoa, rough day?" I asked, brow furrowing. "You look a little frazzled." She came straight to me, wrapped her arms around me tight, and looked me square in the eyes. "Mark, you know how much I love you, right? And you know I would never ever want to hurt you?" "Of course I do, Emily. I mean, maybe I wouldn't kill for you, but I'd do just about anything else," I said with a nervous laugh. "What's going on?" She hesitated just for a heartbeat and then went on. "You've always been so patient, so loving. You let me make a lot of the decisions in our life. You don't try to control me, and I've always cherished that. But over the past few weeks, I've been talking to my boss, Greg, about us. About our relationship. He's had some ideas that made sense to me." Something in my gut clenched hard. "Ideas?" I asked slowly. "He's been telling me about relationships where the man takes on a more submissive role, where the wife leads. He even gave me stories to read about men who enjoy being dominated by their wives. He said those kinds of marriages can be stronger, more exciting." Emily bit her lip, her eyes darting away from mine. "Mark, I found those stories incredibly arousing. They woke something up in me." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Emily, yes? I've always tried to let Emily have her say in the little things that make her happy. Picking where we go on vacation, choosing which restaurants we try, deciding what movie we watch, even giving her input on what I wear sometimes. But when it comes to the big stuff, buying a house, choosing our cars, making investment decisions, I've always been the one to take the lead. To me, that's not being controlling, and it's certainly not submission. It's balance." She hesitated, then said softly, "I get that, Mark, but lately I've been comparing you to Greg. He's different, assertive. People just seem to follow him without him even asking. He's confident, dominant, in complete control of every room he walks into. And you, well, you're caring, gentle. But maybe more of a beta. You might not realize it yet." I felt my jaw tighten like a vice. "That's some armchair, self-help book garbage, Emily. What are you actually trying to say here?" Her eyes flickered, the first crack in her earlier confidence. "Greg told me he's going to take me to bed. That he'd show me a kind of passion I've never felt before." It was like a block of ice dropped into my chest. My voice was quiet but sharp. "And what did you say to him?" She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "I let him touch me. I know it was wrong. I know I probably crossed a line, but it excited me. I've been daydreaming about him, picturing him seducing me at the office. My stomach turned so hard I thought I might be sick." "Emily, did you sleep with him?" She couldn't meet my eyes. "Not yet. But on the way home in the car, he touched me. He's outside right now. In our driveway. Waiting. He wants to come in so we can talk about this. And then, he wants to take me upstairs." I just stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. "You're serious?" She nodded without hesitation. "Yes, Mark. And you might even like it. Greg thinks you will. He says men like you, men who are naturally submissive, can get pleasure out of watching. And afterward, she gave a faint, almost dreamy smile. Afterward, you and I could have the best night we've ever had together. She looked me straight in the eye and said, Mark, afterward, I'll let you do anything you've ever dreamed of. I let out a sharp, bitter exhale, my hands curling into tight fists. Let me make sure I'm hearing this right. You honestly expect me to just sit back, smile, and watch you be with another man? To enjoy it? It's not cheating, Mark, she said almost defensively. It's exploring. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Emily, you've already crossed that line. Emotional betrayal, physical betrayal, you can dress it up however you want, but it's still betrayal. She flinched, but her voice softened. Please just give this a chance. You might see it differently. You might even think it's epic. Oh, it'll be epic all right, I muttered, my voice low and cold. As she turned toward the stairs, I acted. I reached for her purse, pulling out her car keys, house keys, and her phone. From her wallet, I slid out our shared credit card. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a dish towel, a couple of heavy-duty zip ties from the junk drawer, and my biggest carving knife. Stepping out into the night air, my heart was beating like a war drum. I approached Greg's car. He was sitting there in the driver's seat, casually scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. When he noticed me, a smug smile crept across his face. Well, look who it is. I guess Emily told you everything, he said with a lazy confidence. Don't worry, man, I'll let you have her when I'm done. At least for now. I didn't let him finish. With every ounce of strength I had, I drove my left fist straight into his nose. I felt the crunch before I even saw the blood start pouring. His scream was sharp and ugly. I tossed the towel at him. Here, Greggy, you might need that. As he instinctively brought it to his face, I slipped a zip tie around his left wrist and cinched it tight to the headrest. Then I yanked open the driver's side door and sent another punch, this one aimed lower, right at the core of his so-called manhood. He folded over in a breathless groan. I didn't give him a chance to recover. I grabbed his right wrist and tied it to the steering wheel, leaning in close enough for him to feel my breath. I leaned in so close he could feel my breath on his ear and whispered, So this is the big, dominant alpha male I've been hearing about? Can't even put up a fight? You're nothing but a pitiful shell of a man. My eyes caught sight of the garden hose coiled on the lawn, still hooked up to a heavy steel spray nozzle. Without a second thought, I grabbed it, swung hard, and the side window exploded in a shower of glass. Tiny shards rained down on him, catching in his hair and clothes. I walked around to the front of the car, adrenaline surging. Another swing. The windshield splintered into a spiderweb of cracks, the sound ringing in my ears. Then I turned my attention to the headlights. 2 quick, satisfying blows, and they were nothing but jagged plastic and broken bulbs. My breathing was ragged now, my pulse pounding. I leaned into the open door and smirked. Looks like your ride could use some bodywork, Greg. Then, slowly, I reached into my pocket, pulled out the carving knife, and pressed the cold blade against the side of his neck. My voice dropped low, controlled but sharp enough to cut. Now, let's give Emily that epic experience she thought she wanted. I locked eyes with him. How many times have you been with my wife, trying to convince her I'd be okay with this? His bravado crumbled. Fear replaced that smug look and his voice shook. Only twice. In the past few weeks. It didn't mean anything. Just sex. For both of us. Please, just let me go and you'll never see me again. I studied him like he was something foul stuck to the bottom of my shoe. I'm not going to kill you, at least not tonight. But if I hear so much as a whisper from the police or if anything else happens because of what went down here, I will find you. Do you understand me? His head jerked in a frantic nod. And if you think I'm bluffing, think again, I continued. You might think time will make me forget. It won't. Maybe I'll get arrested. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll serve time. Maybe I won't. But sooner or later, somewhere in your future, I'll be there. Could be in a dark parking lot when you're walking to your car. Could be in an elevator at work. I leaned in until my face was inches from his, my voice a low, steady growl. One day, maybe a week from now, maybe a month, maybe years down the line, I will find you. And when I do, I'll cut your throat and watch the light leave your eyes. That choice is yours. This could be the last time you ever see me, or it could be the start of you living every day wondering if today is the day I come for you. With those words, I leaned over him and drove the knife deep into the passenger seat, the blade quivering as it stuck. Your little fling, Emily, will need this to cut you free. After that, I don't care what happens. Take her to a hospital, take her anywhere you want. Just make sure she's gone from my sight. I turned and walked back into the house, my pulse still hammering. As soon as I shut the door behind me, I heard her voice calling from upstairs, dripping with anticipation. Is that you, Greg? Come and take me. Did you and Mark sort things out? For a split second, I just stood there, stunned at her sheer ignorance. I thought to myself, what kind of person is this woman? I called back, my voice steady. Emily, Greg's in the car. He wants you to go talk to him. Seems like he might have had a change of heart. A minute later, she came down the stairs. She was wearing the lingerie I'd once bought her as a gift, covered loosely by a robe she'd barely tied. What happened, Mark? Did you reassure him that everything was fine? I gave her a thin smile. I told him that his future depends entirely on his next few choices. You should probably go out there and have that conversation. She tilted her head, looking puzzled. Mark, please remember I love you. This is going to make us stronger. Of course, Emily, I said quietly. I already feel stronger. That seemed to satisfy her. She smiled faintly and walked out the front door. As soon as she stepped outside, I turned the deadbolt, locking it behind her. Without another glance, I headed into the garage and pressed the button to raise the garage door. Then I turned toward the stairs, walking slowly, my mind a storm of thoughts. From outside, I heard her voice rise, frantic and angry. Mark, what have you done? Come here right now. I didn't answer. I didn't even slow down. I walked straight upstairs to our bedroom, pulled one of our large suitcases from under the bed, and yanked it open. From her dresser, I grabbed handfuls of clothes, lingerie, bras, socks, stuffing them in without care. From the closet, I pulled down some of her favorite t-shirts, a couple pairs of jeans, sweaters, whatever I could grab in one sweep. I went into the bathroom and swept most of her makeup, skincare, and toiletries into the bag until it was close to bursting. Back in the closet, I spotted a pair of her tennis shoes and tucked them under my arm. Then I walked to the guest bedroom at the front of the house, threw open the window and shouted, Emily! Over here, you might need this. With that, I hurled the suitcase out onto the driveway. I heard the dull thud as it hit, followed by the faint sound of something breaking, probably a few perfume bottles. Didn't matter. Not my problem. Next, I tossed the tennis shoes, aiming right for her head. She ducked just in time and they bounced harmlessly onto the pavement. Her voice cracked. Mark, please, what are you doing? I thought this was what you wanted. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you angry or hurt you. I can't believe how cruel you were to Greg. For heaven's sake, he's my boss. Please, let me in and we can talk about how to work through this. I stared down at her, my voice flat but burning with anger. Emily, I can't even wrap my head around the nonsense you've been spouting since you came home tonight with your little plan to turn me into some kind of trophy for your games. I don't know if you've had a stroke, if you're on something, or if I just never realized how shallow and empty you really are. Whatever the case, it doesn't matter anymore. I pointed toward the driveway. Get out. Take your lover to the hospital, but on the way, make sure you ask him what happens if I hear even a whisper about tonight, from the police, from anyone. Because if I do, you both already know I'll come find him. I'll pack the rest of your things in trash bags and you can tell me where to drop them. But you do not come back to this house. Ever. With that, I slammed the window shut, stomped downstairs and yanked open the front door. Her handbag was still where I'd left it on the counter, so I picked it up and hurled it at her. This time my aim was true. It hit her square in the chest. Before slamming the door, I couldn't resist adding, "Is that enough for you, Emily?" I locked it and walked straight to the kitchen, where I cracked open my second beer of the evening. My hands were still trembling, but my head was already starting to shift from rage to damage control. I needed to call my lawyer tonight. If Greg tried to go to the police, I wanted to be prepared. And I needed the name of a good divorce attorney. From the front window, I could see Greg yelling something at her through the cracked glass of his car. She was crouched by the passenger side, cutting the zip ties with the knife I'd left. Then she tossed the blade onto the ground, shoved her suitcase into the trunk, and Greg, still bleeding, crawled into the back seat, lying down like he'd been knocked out in a fight. Emily got behind the wheel, her face pale and streaked with tears. She didn't look back at the house as she reversed down the driveway and disappeared down the street. As the adrenaline started to drain from my body, a strange calm settled over me. I was still in shock at how the night had unfolded, at how far she had spiraled into whatever fantasy she'd been chasing. And I was equally stunned, and honestly a little unnerved, by how close I'd come to actually killing him. One slip, one deeper cut, and this would have been a very different night. But as the fog in my mind started to clear, I realized something. Greg wasn't worth it. He'd sold her on a fantasy, filled her head with nonsense about alphas and betas, as if relationships were some kind of animal hierarchy. What he never understood, and what she clearly never did either, was that the way I let her make choices wasn't weakness. It wasn't submission. It was love. It was respect. It was about creating a marriage built on trust, where her happiness mattered to me as much as my own. And she had completely mistaken my kindness for weakness. So, in her mind, I was just some submissive beta pushover who'd happily let her parade a guy like Greg into my home and watch her cheat on me. Unbelievable. I never saw that one coming. For the next few days, Emily stayed away from the house. I kept getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I assumed it was her since I still had her phone. Eventually, she left a voicemail, her voice shaky, begging me to call her back so we could talk things over. I knew it was only a matter of time before I'd have to see her again. And since the police hadn't shown up at my door, I figured I'd dodged the worst of it. Time to finish what was left of this mess. I called her back and told her to come by in an hour. Then I hung up, went through the house and packed up every single thing that belonged to her, or even might belong to her. By the time she pulled into the driveway, everything of hers was boxed or bagged, sitting by the door. I was already on the porch, waiting. When she stepped out of the car, I didn't waste time. Greg told me you slept with him at least a few times over the past couple weeks, all while he was feeding you this alpha/beta garbage, and you went along with it. Your lust outweighed the vows and promises you made to me. We've been married for just 5 years. If you can break those vows this easily, what's going to happen in 7 years? 10? 15? How many times will you get bored and go looking for someone new? Her voice was soft. Mark, I will never do that to you again. I shook my head. You already did. So don't say never. I took a breath and looked her straight in the eye. I've been thinking about this a lot. We don't have kids. We don't have much in the bank. The only real asset we share is this house, and even that has barely any equity. And I've decided, the risk of staying married to you is far greater than any possible benefit. I'm convinced it's only a matter of time before you justify another affair in your head. And next time? You won't even tell me. You'll just do it behind my back. I felt the words settle like a final weight between us. I don't trust you anymore, Emily. And worse than that, I've lost all respect for you. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me, and someone I can't respect in return. I looked her straight in the eyes. Emily, I don't respect you anymore. She started crying as soon as the words left my mouth, and by the time I finished explaining my decision, she was full-on sobbing. Emily, I said, my voice steady, we're getting a divorce. You'll keep your car, I'll keep mine. We'll split whatever savings we have and we'll sell the house. We're both still young and I'd like to start over with someone who will love me and respect me for exactly who I am. I've already spoken to a divorce attorney so we can keep this amicable, or you can hire your own lawyer if you want. Either way, this is happening. Now, let's get your things loaded into the car so you can leave, and love as many so-called alpha males as your heart desires. I added quietly, I'll start packing my own things next week so we can get the house on the market. Her voice broke. No, Mark, no. You have to forgive me. I need you. I love you. I really do respect you. It was just a mistake. I got caught up in something stupid. Please, you have to forgive me. I shook my head. I'm sorry, Emily, but I've said everything I needed to say. Now it's time for both of us to move on. And if we ever run into each other down the road, let's just be polite, say hello and keep walking. With that, I started loading the bags and boxes into her trunk. When everything was in, I closed it, looked at her one last time and simply said, goodbye. Then I walked back inside, shut the door, and with that simple click of the lock, closed the door on our marriage for good. The day after I told Emily it was over, I woke up to a strangely quiet house. No sound of the coffee maker starting on its own, no faint hum of her blow dryer from upstairs, just silence. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel heavy. She texted me twice that morning from a new number. The first message said she'd found a friend to stay with for now. The second was a wall of text. Apologies, explanations, the same tired lines about making a mistake and how we could fix this if I just give her a chance. I didn't answer. By day 3, mutual friends started reaching out. Some didn't know the details and just wanted to check in. A few knew exactly what had happened, and their reactions were split. Half of them were on my side, telling me I'd done the right thing. The other half tried to soften it, saying things like, people make mistakes, maybe this was just a rough patch. Those were the ones I started avoiding. Greg never contacted me directly, but word travels fast. A buddy of mine who works near Greg's office told me he'd been wearing sunglasses indoors for a few days to hide the damage I'd done to his face. Apparently, his story to coworkers was that he'd had a little accident at the gym. I almost laughed when I heard that. A week later, Emily showed up unannounced in the driveway while I was hauling some boxes to the garage. She didn't get out of the car, just sat there, window halfway down, and asked if I'd reconsider. She said she'd blocked Greg, told her boss she needed space, and that she was willing to go to counseling. I told her it was too late. She cried for a while, then drove away without another word. The divorce paperwork moved quickly, one benefit of having no kids and few shared assets. By the end of the month, the house was listed for sale. I started sleeping better, eating better, even laughing again. I'd catch myself remembering the rage from that night and feel a strange mix of shame and relief. Shame because I'd come so close to crossing a line I could never uncross. Relief because I hadn't. And as for Greg, I never saw him again. But I knew deep down he was still looking over his shoulder. And maybe that was enough. In the months after the divorce was finalized, life started to feel lighter. Not easier exactly, I still had days where the anger and betrayal crept in, but lighter. The absence of constant tension was like finally being able to breathe after holding it in for too long. I stopped checking my phone expecting her messages. I stopped replaying that night over and over in my head. Eventually, Emily became less of a wound and more of a scar, something that would always be there but no longer bleeding. The strangest part was realizing how wrong she had been about me. She thought I was some docile beta, who'd tolerate anything. But the truth was I'd been patient because I believed in us. Because I valued peace over pointless fights. She mistook kindness for weakness, and by the time she realized the difference, it was too late. A few mutual friends later told me Emily had quit her job. Apparently, things with Greg had fallen apart not long after that night. I didn't ask for details. Some things are better left unknown. I started focusing on my own life again. Picking up hobbies I'd set aside, reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in years, even traveling a bit. There was no dramatic new love story right away, and honestly, I didn't want one. I needed time to rebuild who I was outside of her. Looking back now, I realize I'd been living in a kind of quiet denial for a long time, ignoring little red flags because it was easier to believe in the version of her I thought I knew. But if there's one thing this experience taught me, it's that trust isn't something you sort of have. You either have it completely or you don't have it at all. And once it's gone, there's no getting it back. So if Emily ever thinks about me now, I hope she remembers the man she underestimated, and the day she learned that being kind doesn't mean being weak. About a year after it all ended, I was standing in line at the grocery store when I heard someone say my name. I turned and there she was, Emily. She looked different. Thinner, a little more worn around the edges. Her smile was small, almost cautious. She told me she'd moved to a smaller apartment across town, was working a new job, and was taking life one day at a time. She didn't mention Greg and I didn't ask. We exchanged polite hellos, just like I'd told her we would if we ever crossed paths again. Then I turned back to unload my groceries and she didn't try to keep the conversation going. Walking out to my truck, I realized that for the first time, seeing her didn't sting. There was no wave of anger or bitterness. Just nothing. And in a way that felt like the real closure I'd been waiting for. Since then, I've built a life that feels like mine again. I've dated here and there, nothing serious, but I'm not in a rush. I've learned how much I value peace, and I refuse to let anyone jeopardize that again. Sometimes I still think back to that night, and I can't help but wonder how differently it might have gone if I'd let my rage take over completely. But I didn't. I stopped short. And because of that, I still have my freedom, my future, and my dignity. Emily lost all of those in a single choice. And me? I walked away with something far more valuable than revenge. I walked away with my life back. So that's it. That's the whole story. The night my marriage imploded, the days that followed, and the year it took to fully put it behind me. I didn't come out of it unscarred. Betrayal changes you. It strips away the illusions you've been living under and forces you to see people, and yourself, for who they really are. But it also gives you a choice: stay bitter or move forward. I chose forward. Emily became a part of my past, and that's where she'll stay. I no longer waste time wondering if she regrets what she did or if Greg still glances over his shoulder when walking to his car at night. Those aren't my problems anymore. The life I have now isn't perfect, but it's mine. I wake up without that knot of tension in my chest. I laugh more. I sleep better. I trust myself again. And maybe someday I'll trust someone else too. Until then, I'm just living one day at a time, grateful for the peace I fought for, and for the reminder that being kind is a strength, not a weakness. Thanks for listening.